So you read both the title and thumbnail because, well, you clicked on the video, so it probably worked on you. But what I mean by time not being the resource you think is you're probably thinking of it as like how long it takes to take a turn, and that's what the video is going to be about, right? No, we're talking about time as what you use in an encounter. So with that, I want to go over what is the most important turn in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. The answer is the first turn. And so this is a video about how do you make the most out of your first turn, and when should you delay, do other things. Because turn 1 sets the pace for the entire fight. Now, what do I mean by that? In Pathfinder 2nd Edition, you can look at all of the things as a fight between two sides, player side and monster side. And so on player side, you have all of you, like, our buddy here, and you're all going down turn initiative. And if one of you gets knocked out, not only do you lose the actions from that person, but your healer now needs to waste time setting them back up right there. Make sure they're all good. Then they need to stand up, do all their things. So you lose a massive amount of pressure on the turns you need to bring somebody back. The same is true of enemies, but they don't have the option to bring them back. They just get yeeted off the initiative order. And that's it. So if you on turn 1 can take out an enemy, you made the fight significantly easier on yourself. But if turn 1 goes poorly, you are set up to have a much harder fight in front of you. So turn 1 is the most important turn in the game. And if you want to see how this affects like spell prep and have another look-see at this topic, you can go ahead and look at Professor Proficiency's video, which is here. I'm playing it on mute, and he's basically talking about haste versus loose time arrow, because both of those spells are very good. Well, I wouldn't say haste is very good, but we'll get into that later. That is another video that goes into this topic from a different perspective. I want to focus on it in a more holistic view than just pure action-to-action trading. I also want to talk about damage as a tempo generation tool, and when it does and doesn't. Oh, I just used that funny word, tempo. That is basically how much value did you get in that exact instance. Haste has very low tempo. It doesn't affect you defensively. It takes a long time to pay itself back offensively compared to just, basic attacking. Whether that is electric arc or strike twice, whatever. Haste is action intensive. Now, mind you, damage is only really forcing when you get something to the point where it needs to be afraid of getting knocked out. So damage itself can be very low tempo unless you use it to be threatening a kill very soon or kill something that turn. And it doesn't give you its value back for quite a while. So haste is a very low tempo ability, and that means once you start getting to higher optimization tables, you're not going to see haste as much. Because a known thing among optimizers is the value of turn 1. So I saw in my comments about the monk video, people said that, oh, weapon monk is bad, stance monks are better. Nope, stance monks take an action on turn 1. That means they're worse than weapon monks at high optimization. The entire game spins on what do you get out of turn 1. Once you start looking at how do we win fights consistently, the answer becomes, what can we set up in that first turn that benefits us for the rest of the fight? The most obvious way to get an advantage on round 1 is 3 fighters and a bard, because the fighters go, knock something out, bring the encounter down a difficulty step. Bard very quickly sets up a buff state, so they are able to very quickly get an advantage. However, that's an all or nothing gambit. If at any point you can't just straightforward steamroll somebody, that party falls apart. But that is usually people's first experience with the type of gameplay that focusing on your first turn would provide. But if first turn's so valuable, why do people talk about delay so much? And well, there's a pretty easy reason for that. Most of Pathfinder 2e is centered on melee combat, and it takes actions to move. Therefore, if you are like 3 actions of movement apart, whoever walks up to the other side is losing a turn. 3 actions is a turn, so you lose a turn worth of tempo by approaching. That is why people give the advice of camp behind cover. That way range attacks don't get you, and let your range units then force an approach. That is what you do if you want to play in a way that you don't lose. Because if you can force the other person to use their actions to put you in a better spot, you are super winning. So that is a way you can get massive advantage out of turn 1. By delaying, you're making the opponent approach you, then you can undelay, smack them, tail them back. So if you're fighting a troll, and your first initiative as a martial character and the troll is super far away, well, makes no sense to run at it. It has reach reactive strike. Just wait, have it come to you, then take one step forward and beat it up. That's it. That's why you delay. And now there's also other reasons, like a caster could be planning to do a buff. And there is a reason I specifically said, if you are a martial, it is best to delay. Because a caster can still generate value from any range. And yeah, this is where a spell like Haste comes in. I said it was very slow tempo-wise, but if your plan was delay, well, your plan was to lose a turn anyway. So, then Haste starts to look very free in terms of action costs. It's only costing you like a long-range attacking option, which may just be like Frostbite, honestly. And Frostbite, not that much damage, especially into a troll. So who cares? Might as well put Haste on somebody that can use that extra action. That is where you will see Haste get used at high power tables. It's, oh, before we open this door, let me set up a Haste. Before that guy approaches, let me put up a Haste. Let me put up a Heroism. That is where you see buff spells used the most often in higher power tables. It is in this turn 1 when you don't have a more aggressive option. And now, in a boss fight, you do need to set up the buffs even if they aren't a super aggressive option, because your auto attacks, particularly as a mage, are not as good into bosses. So making it so your marshals can actually put dents in them becomes more valuable. But a lot of the time, you evaluate buff spells as things to do when it doesn't make sense to do anything else due to ranges. Or before I open a door. That's usually where people look at buff spells. And, of course, burst damage and area damage really helps in this type of thing as well. Fireball, 500-foot range. You can get them before they stride over to you. So if you win initiative, you can basically spend a spell slot to say, win target encounter with X or more creatures. When I say casters are better at high optimization tables, that's why. They get so much more value out of a turn 1 when played properly. Marshals, they also benefit from thinking about action economy in this way and thinking about action trades and all that. Wrestlers are very good at trading action for action, by the way. That's why I like them so much. They fight in the action economy directly rather than doing adjacently through HP. But yeah, that is the gist of why turn 1 matters, when you should delay, time as a resource. I think I covered most of this topic, but I'm sure that now you're thinking of other ways to apply this. Ranged marshals don't need to spend any actions moving, so they don't need to delay either, they just shoot, move behind cover. And so Starfinder would like to spawn enemies apart from you in a hallway, and everybody has a range attack, so being a melee character means you're wasting a turn to move in. That is how they discourage melee in that game. It is via, the usual encounter design, the usual enemies. They can force a range-focused meta, even if ranged weapons aren't necessarily more powerful. You can do so much after you understand the basic concept of action trading, especially in the early turns. But I think now I'm done with my soapbox. The next video will be on how you apply this idea to then make a party for speedrunning in Donsbury Days. So if you want to see the application of this, you can go watch that video. That will be coming out April 11th, which is the date the DLC comes out. Not a coincidence. So I'll see you all in the next video.